Imagine winning an election with 68% of the vote, only to have the government permanently delete your new job just days before you start.
Oh, wow. Yeah, just poof, completely gone.
Right. So, welcome to the deep dive. Today we are looking at the state of Louisiana. And right now, state leaders are just rapidly rewriting the rules for elections, courts, and schools.
It is a massive political earthquake down there right now.
It really is. I mean, they literally just canceled a congressional election after voting had already started. And they abolished a local court office right before the winning candidate could take his seat.
Which is wild.
Yeah. And not to mention, on May 16, voters face 5 constitutional amendments that could, slice up school districts and completely reshape the state government's workforce.
There's just a dizzying amount of change happening all at once.
Exactly. So our mission today is to unpack a massive stack of highly partisan sources. We are looking at everything from conservative political blogs to progressive advocacy reports, just to figure out exactly what is happening in Louisiana.
Right, because we need to get to the actual facts.
Yes. So, okay, let's unpack this. Are we looking at a brilliant push to make government run better? Or is this a massive overreach of state power?
Well, the answer to that completely depends on who you ask.
Obviously.
Right. I mean, the conservative viewpoint frames these actions as necessary, long overdue fixes to a system that is just broken and inefficient.
Correct.
But meanwhile, left-wing critics view those exact same actions as targeted attacks, specifically attacks on minority voters and local control. So our goal today is to examine the hard facts and let you, the listener, decide what is really going on.
I like that. Let's start with the most personal and immediate example of this power struggle from the sources. We need to talk about Calvin Duncan and the deleted clerk's office.
This case is fascinating.
It really is.
Yeah.
So Duncan spent nearly 30 years in prison for a crime he did not commit. He is eventually exonerated, gets out, and he decides to run for the Orleans Parish criminal court clerk position. He promises to fix the system.
And he won easily, right?
Well, easily. He pulled 68% of the vote.
Yeah.
But then, literally days before he could take office, the governor signed a law that abolished the job entirely.
They just erased the position.
Yes, erased. So, let's look at the impartial debate here. What is the official right-wing viewpoint on why they did this?
So Republican lawmakers argue this has absolutely nothing to do with Calvin Duncan. They point out that Orleans Parish was actually the only parish in all of Louisiana that still separated its civil clerks from its criminal clerks.
Oh, really? Just the one parish?
Yeah. So they argue that merging the civil and criminal clerk offices just fixes a clunky, corrupt system.
Okay, and I see the statistics here from the sources. Supporters estimate this merger will save the state $27,000 a year. And it could save the city up to $260,000.
Which sounds great on paper, but then you have to look at the left wing, the critics' viewpoint. Democrats and civil rights groups argue this was actually a surgical strike to block an exonerated man from gaining any institutional power.
A surgical strike. Wow.
Yeah. And about those cost savings, they point out that a companion report shows the merger might actually shift $1.17 million in costs over to the parish government.
Wait, 1.17 million. So it's not actually saving money, just moving the bill?
That is what the critics are saying, yeah. And Duncan himself noted that doing this tells voters in a black majority district that, their vote just didn't count.
I mean, it feels like winning the Super Bowl, but while you are holding the trophy, the commissioner just announces they dissolved your team.
That is exactly what it feels like.
But why did the state rush the law so fast? Why not let him serve out his term?
That is the really interesting part. The bill's sponsor openly admitted they designed the law to take effect before Duncan could start his 4-year term.
So it was intentional.
Entirely intentional, which raises a massive question about the limits of state power over local elections.
Yeah, no kidding. But canceling the results of a local election is apparently just the appetizer here. Because the state also halted a federal election right in the middle of the voting process. Let's talk about the Louisiana v. Calais case.
This is where things get really legally tangled.
Right. So the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that Louisiana's congressional map was an unconstitutional racial gerrymander. The map included 2 majority black districts, and the court essentially said, nope, you have to redraw it.
Which triggered some immediate and chaotic fallout.
It did. The governor immediately signed an executive order suspending the congressional primaries and pushing them back to July 15th. The wild part about this timeline, early voting was literally about to start.
Yeah, and overseas military voters had already cast their ballots. Those ballots were already in the mail.
That is crazy to me. So
Yeah.
what is the official defense for stopping an election midway through?
Well, the state's logic is pretty straightforward. They say that holding an election with a map that the Supreme Court just declared illegal would be breaking the law. The Attorney General insists they are simply following the court's orders.
Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting. One of the conservative legal blogs we looked at pointed out a massive procedural wrinkle.
Yes. The difference between an opinion and a judgment.
Exactly. The Supreme Court had issued an opinion, but they had not yet issued a certified judgment. Can you explain that?
Sure. So an opinion is essentially the court saying what they think about the case. But a certified judgment is the actual formal document that makes the ruling a binding legal order.
Okay.
And that certified judgment usually takes about 32 days to arrive after the opinion is issued.
So they didn't have the actual binding paperwork yet.
Right. Because the governor acted before that final paperwork arrived, critics filed 5 different lawsuits.
5.
Yeah. And right now, state courts are siding with the governor, while federal courts are just rushing to assemble panels to try and review all this chaos.
And what's the big picture here? Why does this specific map matter so much?
This single map could literally decide the balance of power in the U.S. House of Representatives. If the state draws a new map, it will likely erase one of the majority black districts.
Dropping the state's black representation in Congress from 2 members down to 1.
Exactly. The stakes are incredibly high.
Wow. Okay, so while the congressional races just sit on pause, voters still face this massive May 16 ballot. And this is packed with constitutional amendments that will directly change their local schools and taxes.
Yeah, the ballot is huge.
Let's start with Amendment 2, the St. George breakaway. So St. George is this wealthy, mostly white suburb of Baton Rouge. And they want to carve out their own school district from the East Baton Rouge, or EBR system.
Yeah, they want total independence.
Let me list the massive financial impact of this, because the statistics are wild. East Baton Rouge will lose $94 million in tax revenue, plus another $17 million in state funding.
That is a massive hit.
It gets worse. Because their operating costs will only drop by $40 million, the old district faces this massive $71 million shortfall. And on top of that, St. George will leave behind $57.8 million in retirement debt for the old district to pay.
Right, those legacy pension costs don't just disappear.
Exactly. So what is the debate here?
Well, the supporters of St. George say they want local control. They are extremely frustrated with poor school performance, and they feel they can do it better themselves.
Sure.
But the critics argue this breaks the promise of equal education. They say it leaves the old district poorer and more predominantly black, which effectively recreates segregation by draining all those resources.
Okay, and speaking of school resources, let's move to Amendment 3. This is the teacher pay raise maneuver.
This one is very tricky mathematically.
Right. I'll break down the math from the sources. The state wants to give teachers a $2,250 raise, but to actually pay for it, they want to empty 3 protected education trust funds.
And those funds contain nearly $2 billion.
Wait, $2 billion? Just to give a $2,000 raise?
Yes, but here is the catch. The state currently gives teachers a temporary stipend. If this amendment passes, the new raise just replaces the stipend.
Wait, really? So it's not on top of it?
Nope. The actual net increase for a teacher is a tiny $250.
You are kidding.
And meanwhile, the state wipes out trust funds that currently generate $77 million a year in interest. And that interest pays for K-12 and early childhood programs.
So what does this all mean? Are they basically selling the house just to pay for a cheap dinner?
That is a great way to put it, yeah. The state wants a politically popular pay raise without spending new state tax dollars, but they risk destroying the long-term interest earnings that actually fund vital programs today.
That is wild. And this really connects to the state's broader effort to consolidate control, right, over workers and judges.
Exactly. Let's look at Amendment 1, dealing with the civil service.
Okay, so Louisiana employs 38,000 protected classified workers and 33,000 unprotected unclassified political appointees. Amendment 1 essentially gives the legislature the power to strip civil service protections from those workers.
Right. And critics say this just brings back political cronyism, making it easier to fire people for political reasons.
But supporters want it.
Supporters want more control over the government workforce. They say it makes the system more efficient.
Got it. And then there is Amendment 4 about business taxes. The state wants to let local parishes permanently eliminate property taxes on business inventory.
Which is a huge deal for local revenue.
Yeah, the sources note this tax currently pays for local police and parks. So to get parishes to do it, the state is offering a temporary cash bonus.
But the catch is, once they drop it, they can never bring it back.
A permanent drop for a temporary bonus.
Hmm.
Okay, and finally, let's talk about targeting judges. Amendment 5 raises the mandatory retirement age for judges from 70 to 75. But you found something even bigger in the sources.
Yeah, a newly passed law called the Jacob Carter Act, or Senate Bill 123.
What does it do?
It creates a brand new fast track for the legislature to fire judges they deem incompetent. It forces the governor to remove a judge if a majority of the House and 2/3 of the Senate vote for it after a trial.
So the legislature just bypasses the judicial branch entirely to fire a judge?
Exactly. It fundamentally changes the balance of power.
Wow. Okay, let's wrap this up. In just a few short weeks, Louisiana has suspended a federal election with ballots already in the mail. They deleted a local official's job just to stop him from taking a seat.
Yeah.
And they put the future of public schools, teacher pensions, and judicial independence all on a single ballot.
It's intense, and whether you view these changes as brilliant efficiency or dangerous overreach, Louisiana is providing a real-time masterclass in how quickly an aggressive state government can completely rewrite the rules of daily life.
Seriously. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. As you digest all this, we want to leave you with one final thought. If a state government can legally cancel an election while the ballots are already in the mail and abolish an office just to stop the winner from taking a seat, what exactly protects your local vote from becoming just a suggestion?